All right, everybody. I want to rant real quick about an experience I had this evening related to Facebook Marketplace. I'm going to start by showing you the listing, and I'll point out some key things, and then we'll get into a couple of details. So, what I'm trying to sell, if you look, is a pair of Zip 404 wheels. They're from a bike I no longer own. It was made for racing due to injuries. I'm no longer able to race. I needed to sell these. I have them listed presently as a set with some extras for $900. If I pull it up, I have some nice photos. These were when they were equipped to a bike. This is the front wheel on one side, front wheel on the other side. There's the back wheel on one side, back wheel on the other side. I also have pictures of both wheels from one side. If you notice, there is a little defect on the decal. This will play into everything a little bit later. And then I have pictures on the other side. I list in here that I am willing to include the tires and tubes. These are Continental Grand Prix 5000s. They're Tour de France edition, so they're limited, they're nice, they're expensive. Brake pads, quick release skewers. I was not planning to include the cassette. It's a 11 to 32 cassette. If someone wants it, that way I said we can negotiate it. All right, so I talked to this gentleman. I wasn't feeling well earlier this week. He was willing to wait a couple of days before he picked the wheels up. We tentatively agreed on that price of $900 via messaging. One of the things he asked is that because he apparently rides a 10 speed, he was asking if I had any way to help him change his cassette over. And I've got cassette removal tool, and I've got wrench, chain whip. So I could easily handle that. And I told him that would be fine, especially because the cassette wasn't part of the purchase. Everything seems good. We agreed to meet today. We have a location set up. He runs a little bit late because of traffic, but he's very communicative. Everything is fine. He gets there and wants to look at the wheels, which is fine. Let me grab the wheels. This is where everything starts to really break down, and it drives me crazy. Front wheel. Everything looks pretty good. Not going to give a whole thing, but we'll come back to that in a second. Rear wheel. He's checking everything. They're a little dusty. Nothing big, just surface dust. All the spokes are in good shape. He gets, first off, really concerned. And he starts challenging me, so I know it's kind of going bad. I don't know if the camera will pick this up very well, but as with most of these free hubs, there's tiny little wear marks from the cassette. I've seen this on a lot. And he keeps saying, I've seen this before. I've seen these wheels listed somewhere else. And I keep telling him, like, I have never posted a picture of these wheels without a cassette on them, so they couldn't have been mine. But also saying that's normal wear then, if you're seeing this on other ones. He goes through, he's like, oh, the tires are in good shape, but then he finds a little, like, prick somewhere that I can't really find anymore. On it was like, oh, this. Like, well, it's not a puncture, it's just a little bit of wear. There's not a whole lot. Now, keep in mind, I know how many miles are on these wheels because I tracked everything through Strava. So there's less than 400 miles. Everything seems good. On this one, he gets really upset at one point over the decal, which I'll put here. Remember how I showed you that picture? We're showing that? Well, he starts complaining that he didn't see that, and he thought they were in better shape than he's seen. And then with the front wheel, he starts, checking the bearings. I don't know if I can pick up anything. I'll put the microphone real close. Do you hear anything? I don't hear anything. I really don't. If you roll it back and forth a little bit, because this is a little bit loose, right? You'll hear something, right? But the bearings seem fine. I don't hear anything. But he keeps saying he hears something, so he thinks the bearings are bad. But they're running smooth, and you don't feel any obstruction, and they're rolling forever. I mean, I can't tell what his issue is. He finally gets to the point where he asks, "Okay, what's the best price you can go on this?" I'm like, okay, here we go. Well, I had kind of expected this. Now, I had gotten a tentative offer pending inventory availability to sell these things through a reseller we have here in the state, and they offer $800. So I kind of had that as my bottom end, but I don't want to hit that because I know they're going to make a profit off of it. So I tell them 850. It's the lowest I'm willing to go, and part of it's because I'm throwing in valve stem extensions, which I've never used. I opened the package. I didn't like them. Just got longer valve stem tubes. A package of 4 brake pads, carbon zip ones. Yes, they have some wear if you look, but the wear is from those wheels. And again, we're talking a few hundred miles. Plus, and this is important, my time and effort to change his cassette over. I feel all of that is worth money. Well, he comes back with 600 and just that. And he even tells me, he's like, well, I was thinking of if they're in good shape, I'd offer you 7. I'm like, well, what about the 9 we agreed to? And he's like, well, they're not as good shape as I thought they were. All this stuff. I'm like, they're in the photos. Like, you knew what it was going in. He's really hyping on this decal. Like, was in the photos. Like, well, I didn't see it. And like, well, it's there. And I even showed him, like, it's there. Like, it's not my fault you didn't look at the post. So I eventually say, look, okay, I'll do 8. That's probably about as low as I'm willing to go. He's like, well, I can't even do 7. They're not in good shape. I'm like, well, what do you think you're gonna do? He's like, well, they're just so expensive. And he's saying, they're so expensive. I'm like, yeah, they're zip wheels. Like, well, I want better wheels. The wheels I have suck. And I'm like, well, what do you want me to do about that? And I'm not a charity case. I'm like, well, I drove an hour to get here. Like, yeah, but you're also wasting my time. Like, yeah, you might have wasted your time. You're wasting my time. Because we agreed. I got these out. I did all this, grabbed all my tools out, while I wasn't feeling well, and was agreeing to do all this stuff for him. But no, he wouldn't budge, and then he wouldn't even be willing to. So I said, "What about?" So I try to ease him, like, okay, what about 7? But I don't give you all the extras, because I could get maybe, make up some of the money for it. Like, oh, I can't do that. They're just too expensive. I'm like, well, what do you think you're gonna get for a good set of wheels? Like, how much are you willing to spend? And he's like, well, I was really hoping not to go more than 5. I could do 6. I'm like, seriously, if you want really good wheels, yeah, you could find a couple options, but they're alloy. I could recommend some, but I'm not going to because you're wasting my time at this point. The point is that I'm so frustrated. Is that this went on for days. I try to be a nice person for this guy. And like I changed the listing to pending when we agreed originally on everything. Shine of faith. It's not pending anymore. How many of you have these problems? And what should my backup be? I mean, do you have any advice? Have you run into this issue with Facebook Marketplace too? You try to sell something, you agree on a price, and they come and like deliberately lowball you and just waste your friggin' time? Because I am blown away that this guy, one, thought he could get around it, thought he could like make up stuff that was clearly in the photos, make up sounds that I couldn't hear, I couldn't replicate, and not throw any idea into the extras. And like most of the wheels I see that are in the price point around 1,000, these kind of wheels aren't coming with tires. Half of them aren't coming with the skewers. Not a lot of them definitely aren't coming with brake pads. I mean, so yeah. I mean, I don't know. I had a vent. Thank you for listening. Throw any comments you have down below to share some advice. or just rant yourself. I'd love to hear your stories on these kind of issues because it'd be nice to know I'm not the only one. But thanks for letting my ADD brain run a little crazy. Have a good one. Like the video if you want more. Any advice that you have to make these videos better, any stories you have you want to share, and throw a subscribe if you like what I'm doing. You just want to hear more random stuff out of this brain. So have a good night, everybody.